You know, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the background leading up to this point that's allowed us to get it out there so quickly.
Cool. So we'll jump into some action. We're going into Hell first. So PvP Online, obviously, hopefully, a lot of the people that are watching have been playing it for the last month, sort of against the AI. Is there any sort of difference with the structure as to how it works online?
Yeah, very much so. So we've tried to keep things as punchy as possible, and basically we've created 8-player lobbies, but we then split that lobby into groups of 4. So you have 2 heats essentially running off against one another, so those 2 races happen simultaneously, and then the results of that go into the next round. So if you're doing a multi-round race, you'll be up against various people depending on your finishing positions. So generally the first race in the series is probably the most important, and then from there it's a case of trying to maintain your position within.
So somebody were racing against Jump the Start, that was brave of them. Okay, yeah. So all of these people, these are all actual real world people?
Yeah, these are all people downstairs in the playtest room that have joined into the session. As you can see, Hustle and Bustle of Rallycross is very much there. We've tried to capture the fact that Rallycross is, although not officially a contact sport, it's one of the forms of motorsport where contact is not as frowned upon as I think it is in a lot of other motorsports. So we've really tried to capture that as much as possible.
So there was plenty of contact this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every weekend in Rallycross there are incidents. Some of them end up deciding races, but you know, it's great that drivers can go head to head into corners and use their skill, but also jostle a little bit more. And I think that comes from the four-wheel drive layout of the cars. You get a lot more control over the car, even when you've been knocked around a little bit. And so, really, the only thing that affects drivers is taking damage in those instances. So, you know, we've tried to capture having punctures and stuff into the experience, so that yeah, if you jostle too much, you're going to get penalised for it through the damage of the car. But we're also trying to police collisions as well through some of our underlying systems to make sure that players aren't getting away with being overtly aggressive in races. That said, because we're using real rallycross circuits rather than fictional tracks that we've designed in-house, what we have started to find is that, you know, the layouts of the circuits actually lend themselves a lot better to not having those big impacts. And because we're splitting the session into groups of 4, so the most you'll ever be racing against is 4 people, there's a lot more room to find your own way into the first corner. Joe collapse have made a huge difference, so tactically you can split the pack a lot more. And what that means is that players are able to find their own space and not really end up in those collision situations, which kind of get forced upon you when you're giving 8 players the same corner to go for and no option to find space. So I think although there's a lot of jostling going on, we've done a lot of work improving our collisions compared to some of our previous titles. That means that now you'll be able to feel getting hit, but you'll also be able to nudge people and not necessarily be spinning them out instantly. It's not like a tap will instantly result in a race ending situation for 1 of 2 drivers. Everyone will just be jostling and going for position with one another. So I think that's worked out really, really nicely.
So I mean, I play a lot of racing games online, and it is always that kind of like hectic first corner mad dash. It's not like it is watching sort of real world motorsport. Even playing our old Codemasters games, sort of in the past, we've tried to implement things like sort of corner cutting rules where we might sort of, it's almost like we falsely sort of decelerated the car and things like that. But with Dirt Rally, with this update, we haven't made those traditional sort of video gamey things sort of happen. So I mean, how will players know sort of when penalties are coming up, and how are we handling that sort of system as to how they're all dealt out? Yeah,
so if you played the PvE stuff and you've taken some cheeky cuts to try and get ahead of the AI, not that you really needed to in the last update because the AI were running around pretty slowly, you'll have seen that you've been getting a steward's inquiry that's looking into the cut that you're doing, and that's because we put lines down that are essentially there and then we ask the question, do we believe they've gained an advantage in that situation? If we feel that they haven't gained an advantage by taking that cut, then the player won't have got a penalty. And those systems are applying in PvP as well. But we need people's feedback on it. We need to know whether some of those cuts are actually gaining an advantage compared to what our system believes is the case. And if they are, then we need to adjust those lines and make sure that, you know, the racing gets fairer and fairer as people go ahead with it. You know, really, we've only been playing this with, well, initially 8 people maximum. Then we rolled it out to our community guys, and a big thank you to those guys who've been helping us over the last few weeks. And they've been finding stuff for us. But until this actually goes out into the wild to the tens of thousands of players that are out there playing it, we're not going to know every little instance that can lead to somebody gaining an advantage unfairly. And it's up to you guys to capture these moments on video and let us know, and we can start sort of tying up these loopholes and making sure that the experience is as fair as possible going forwards.
So here we are at Lidden. Actually, no, I'll tell you what I should do before I get too carried away and too far into live stream. To you guys that are watching, if you head over to our Twitter page, which is twitter.com/dirtgame, and you'll see a tweet that went up at about 3 o'clock, sort of with the main image for the live stream on. If you go on and retweet that tweet, we'll be picking one lucky winner later on to win a Dirt Rally swag pack, which includes this t-shirt, Logitech mouse, Dirt Rally notebook, and a set of Logitech G35 headphones. And I've just been passed a note saying the webcam feed is frozen. It's all going wrong today.
It's okay, I'll take my shirt off now.
No, yeah, everybody get dressed. Let's just try switching it back over and see what happens. So yeah, if you head over to the Twitter page, twitter.com/dirtgame, find that tweet that went up at 3 o'clock and give it a retweet. We'll be picking a winner to win all of that glorious swag. Let's go back over to the camera feed. Hopefully that's going to work. We'll see. Okay, right. So we'll hop on and ask some questions, which have come in on Twitter. So Marcus M. Mikola on Twitter has asked, what are your favourite rallycross circuits in the World RX?
So I have to say it's probably Hell, partly because I've been there and I've seen it live, and partly because the blind crests and the jumps really make it a spectacular circuit, and that coupled with the big velodrome corners where you really see the RX cars, you know, punishing their tyres. I think it's an absolute favourite for me. You know, there's some great circuits in that calendar though. Some new, some classic. So I think they've all got their own little characters, but Holgers is definitely my favourite.
Okay. It looks like the webcam feed is completely broken.
So we're doing a radio show.
So we're doing a radio show now. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on. So actually, this one just steps away from Rallycross just a little bit and sort of going back to the rally content that's in Dirt Rally. PM Sim Racing wants to know, if you joined all the co-driver notes together, how long is the audio in hours? And well, it basically says he always wanted to know how long it took to record.
Well, the recording times is probably easier to say than trying to do the math on adding all the stuff together. But I think every route would take us about an hour, forwards and backwards. So we'd get the forwards and reverse version of that route in within the hour-long recording session. But it wasn't as simple as just doing one run and then doing the next run backwards. We'd record. Essentially, we'd record 3 different versions of the track. We'd do a medium intensity one, a high intensity version, where we'd crank the D-box settings right up and try and get as much movement out of the seat as possible. And then we'd do a no movement one. And the idea with that was that we would be essentially altering the tone of the co-driver voice based on how quickly the player was playing and how close to the edge they were getting on the track. In the end, I think we've only ended up using 2 versions, and that's the high intensity one, which gives you that sort of sense of urgency through the stage. And then if you ever do drive down one of our stages really slowly, you should hear the co-driver voice kind of calming down to a more kind of passive version of it, as if you were just quietly driving down the stage without too much going on. So yeah, that a few takes for each run, just to make sure that big errors aren't getting made, and making sure that we're getting the right lines out at the right time. And then actually we use the recordings to do a first pass on the timing for the stages. So where those calls get made in the recording, we then take the timestamps and use that as the first pass when we layer the notes into the level design. They then get adjusted from that point onwards, but it gives a really good starting point for that sort of stuff.
Cool. Something that we spoke about, actually no, when did we speak about it? I know we spoke about it when we were getting a cup of tea last week, but I think we mentioned it a little bit in last week's Roadbook blog post on dirtgame.com as well. We were kind of talking about it's almost like everything that we've learnt to this point with regards to the car handling and I think internally we probably call it Vehicle Pass 2.0, but we haven't really given it a public kind of name yet. It's basically the changes that we're going to be making to improve the cars.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of things will we be doing, and how's it going to improve the handling of all the cars?
So, I mean, this has obviously been the first project that we've done where we've put our handling out there, and people have been able to give us feedback right from the start. But prior to that, for the best part of a year and a half, we've been tweaking our handling and improving it as a prototype within the studio. Now, the things that we've learned, both from the feedback that we've been getting from the community, but also by learning new stuff about different vehicles, by going and speaking to the rallycross teams, has meant that the cars that we launched with are missing some of the stuff that the cars that have gone into this rallycross pack have got. And really V2 is our kind of internal terminology for what we think our more finished version of the physics should be. So a lot of that stuff comes from learnings that we made about air resistance with the Pikes Peak pack, learning about the tyres and roll centres and anti-squat and anti-dive technology from the rallycross teams, stuff to do with engine friction and engine inertias. And some of the cars, like the kit cars that we added into Germany, they've got less engine friction and they've got better air resistance tech in there. And you can feel those cars being a lot more alive than some of the cars that we released in the first launch pack. So really it's a case of refactoring all of the cars and bringing them up to this higher standard so that, you know, everything feels much more alive and much more in tune with what we know we can do from the system. And you know, it's an ongoing thing. Like even today, just before the live stream, the simulation guys were trying to get me to go over to try something because they've had another.
You were mic'd up.
I know, I was mic'd up and I'm sort of strapped into the sofa, but it sounds like they've got another eureka moment there for us to go and get hands-on with. So you know, we don't want this to be a situation where we've launched content into the game and that's where it stays. We always want to be iterating on this stuff and trying new things and getting it out there for you guys to try. And I think V2 is a nice name for it. Actually, it implies that there is, you know, a fairly big rework being done on the cars, and the results are looking really, really positive already. But there's more to come. Cool.
Right, let's get back to some. Rallycross questions. I did have a good one that was ready and I've lost it. Here we go. So Russ Varley has asked, which is your bad corner, the one that you mostly get wrong on the rallycross tracks?
On the rallycross tracks, it is probably going into the Joker lap at Lidenhill. I can just never hook it up right. I always either end up braking too early or braking way late and you know, running a bit wide and ending up in the tyres, or just going slowly through it and just letting everyone else get ahead of me. so yeah, that's definitely my bogey corner from a rallycross perspective.
I think Lyddon's probably mine as well, because it's the one at the top of the hill, because I always gun it too much. And because it's like you're going uphill, you put the brakes on, the car's like, nah, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, technically the car does slow down more because you're going uphill, but obviously you've had a good sort of couple of seconds hard on the accelerator, and there's no braking marker boards on Lyddon like you would get at more traditional race circuits. And so yeah, it's a case of knowing which blade of grass to stamp on the brakes at. So yeah, that is a tricky one.
What about rally? What about the rally corners?
Oh, there's so many. You know, the classic that catches everyone out the first time is at the end of the long run of Greece when you're going uphill. Just getting through all of those final hairpins, and you're on the last corner before the finish. And I think it's a slightly bad note, because I think the corner's a little bit tighter than perhaps we called it in the notes. So you go in there expecting it to be a 4, and it's actually a 3 with a telegraph pole on the outside. And I think most people end up giving that a kiss at some point in their rally career.
That was going to be my corner as well, actually, because like, I mean, Greece was probably one of the first. It was certainly the first track I ever played in the game, like back about. And that corner then was always, it was almost like a bit of a running joke. We were going to put flowers on the flagpole at one point, because like, it just got that bad.
Yeah, it was. It has always been a bogey corner, even before we had co-driver calls in there, and we did put a caution on it. But yeah, I think it's just because you can hear the finish, you can see it on the progress bar. You know that you're coming to the end, and that little lapse of concentration can really catch you out.
So. Something else that we're seeing on screen now is obviously we've added in another layer to the rallycross we've now got sort of the weather, so we're doing hell in the wet at the moment. What kind of changes does that make to, I suppose, what people would have been used to doing the rallycross circuits in the dry last month? So what kind of dynamic does it throw into the mix now when it's raining?
Yeah, so in rallycross, when they call a wet race, the teams obviously change to their wet tyres. So the change is not necessarily as dramatic as you'd expect it to be, because the tyres are cut differently and are designed so that, you know, they can cope with the wet conditions. But because they're still derived from essentially a cut slick, the wet weather tyre on the dirt sections of the track actually has a more dramatic difference than that you'll see when you're going from dry tarmac to dry gravel. On the rallycross circuits, so it's definitely a lot more slipping and sliding around in general because you're in the wet, but it's more pronounced on the dirt side of it. So this is actually a wet race, but we haven't got the rain falling. But obviously there's the version of the weather with the rain falling as well. But this is the reason we held this back, was because we wanted to spend a bit more time on our visual effects, making sure that the particles and the kick up that was getting thrown up from the cars in front was really going to affect you. Obviously, we're not seeing that because Robson's miles out in the lead in this particular race. But
there's a little bit in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. I mean, the spray's great, but it's when you get onto the rough stuff and you start getting a bit of mud thrown up there as well. It does make a huge difference.
Okay, right. We'll get back on to some questions. We did have a good one from Sergeant Benton. He wants to know if you've got any tips for going faster at Lyddon Hill.
Probably braking points, I think, is the key one. Get really nerdy about, like, be prepared to go in there, do a few races where you're running wide on corners because you brake too late, but find where that optimum braking point is, and then stamp that in your brain, because yeah, that's where a lot of time can be gained and lost at Lyddon. Because the corners are all quite similar but very different in their nuances.
So I thought Benton would know better, to be honest. I thought he'd been practicing with Evil Smurf, and
yeah.
He's normally doing better. Come on, Benton, pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay, where was the Right, okay, this was a good question. I think this sort of leads on to some stuff that we've been working on. So will we have adjustable cockpit view anytime soon?
So, depends what that particular person means by adjustable cockpit view, but what we are doing with this particular update is expanding the range of the field of view so that you'll be able to adjust your view settings a lot more than we previously allowed you to do. So let us know if that has helped improve things. I'm hoping it's made some improvements for the guys with multiple screens as well, although we haven't specifically done it for those guys. We just wanted to open it up a bit more. Now, you know, traditionally we haven't done that in the past because it started to clip a little bit in the cockpit, and by clip I mean you start.
It's like you go through the car.
Yeah, bits don't draw properly, and you know our quality assurance teams like to bug that stuff when it happens. But I think because it's a PC version, we want players to be having as much adjustment as possible. We've allowed for a little bit of clipping to occur at the far extremes of it, but what it means is you can get a lot more range on your field of view, and that should open up that sense of being able to adjust the cockpit experience much more to your liking. So hopefully that's at least some way towards what people have been asking for in terms of adjustability.
Cool. That question was from Track Junkie, by the way. I forgot to mention their name. Thanks for sending it in, Track Junkie.
Cool.
Okay. Actually, I tell you what. Just hello to anybody that has just joined the live stream. The webcam broke about 5 minutes in, so that's why you can't see mine and Paul's beautiful faces. But we have got a competition going on while we're running the live stream. If you head over to twitter.com/dirtgame, look for the tweet that we sent out about 3 o'clock with a link to the live stream. If you retweet that, one lucky winner will win a set of Logitech, I forgot what they're called, G35 headphones. There's a Logitech Daedalus Apex mouse, Dirt Rally t-shirt, Dirt Rally notebook, copy of the game, just the whole swag pack experience. Obviously we've been taking your questions as well. If we read out your question during the live stream, you'll also get hold of a Dirt Rally swag pack as well, and we'll be in touch after the live stream to sort that out. Okie doke. So,
okay, last lap coming up. Don't forget your joker.
I'm trying to think. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I really want to talk a little bit about Finland, because it's almost like we've had a very nice holiday with World RX.
Yeah.
But as we're sort of coming forward, we're looking at sort of jumping back into rally, obviously, with Finland. What kind of stage are we at now with something like that, when we're about?
And they got quite far ahead, and then we looked at some of the stuff that was coming back and we weren't quite happy with it. So actually a lot of the time that they'd made up by getting ahead, we actually ended up using up to refine and polish up the track. Now a lot of that came from the fact that we'd researched the particular stage that we're including in autumn, and so the foliage was not quite as dense as it had appeared if you watch the onboards from Rally Finland, where it's kind of high summer and there's a lot of greenery around. So as a result, the edges of the track felt a little bit far away from you, and the experience was a little bit muted. You didn't get that sense of speed that I think players would be expecting from Finland, seeing as it's one of the fastest rallies, if not the fastest rally on the calendar. So we spent a lot of time adjusting the density of the bushes. It's still autumnal foliage, so it is going to look a bit browner than perhaps people were expecting, but we've done that so that it offsets that feel against Wales. So you get a bit more of a palette difference between Wales and Finland, but the foliage density's there, the track's the right width now, and the crests and jumps are just unbelievable. And I think the coolest thing is taking a V2 car down there. It's next level. It really, really is. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but yeah, I'm really excited about it. And yeah, you absolutely have to listen to your co-driver, because the trouble with Finland is you're spending so much time flat out that you can zone out from what the co-driver's saying, and then there will be a corner that you'll have to slow down for that you'll have missed, and then before you know it, you're barrel rolling through the trees. So yeah, it's one to really, you know, keep listening to your co-driver, keep preempting those crests and corners, and make sure that the position of the car is exactly where it needs to be, because yeah, it's all about getting those fractions of a second by keeping it as pinned as you dare. But one little mistake and it's a proper big moment when you do go off in Finland. And just on that point of it being flat out the whole way through, we've actually made the track longer than a lot of our other tracks to account for the fact that you are flat out for a large proportion of it. So your overall experience is going to be pretty similar to some of the other locations that we've got. But to do that, we've made the track a bit longer to account for it.
So, I just spotted a tweet that came in from Freddie Chappers. His wheel died last night. I feel for him. He wants to know what wheels would you recommend to play dirt rally with?
Is this as a purchase decision?
I guess so, yeah. It's just time to get a new one. I don't know what he had before though.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big Thrustmaster wheels are great, although I'm not a huge fan of them when the shifters stay in the same position. It always weirds me out because I end up downshifting when I want to be upshifting because I've got my arms crossed over. But they are great wheels and they've got great feeling. The Fanatec wheels are also fantastic. We've done a bit of work with Fanatec in this last update to actually make sure that the Club Sport wheels have got all of their rev lights and digital displays fully supported, getting rumble through the pedal now, so when you're locking up your brakes you're actually getting a bit of force feedback through the pedal telling you to back off a little bit. So the Fanatec wheels are great, and then Logitech, so we've supported Logitech probably as our primary wheel purely because we've got a lot of them in the studio.
Yeah, I mean Robson's currently playing on a G27.
Yeah, he's on a G27, and we have been working with them to get the G29 up and running, but I don't think that's available yet, so it's not 100% fully supported by us. But yeah, I mean, so basically if it's one of the big three wheel manufacturers, then we've got good support for it, and a lot of the settings have been tweaked and refined. And something else that we're looking at doing in the future is a bit of Steam Workshop support so that players can share their force feedback settings. So when you've found a good setting on your wheel, you'll be able to upload that to Steam Workshop and then be able to share that with the community, which I think will help players get their settings dialed in, because there's a few people that have gone out there and bought wheels because they've loved this game so much, but they're conscious of the fact that the wheel will make the experience that much better. But because they're inexperienced with having the wheel, they don't really know which settings to dial in which areas. So being able to sort of try out some people's recommended settings, I think will really help with that stuff.
Job 3 KK, he or she, actually, I don't know, wants to know, does the partnership with FIA World RX end here, or will it be continued? It
definitely doesn't end here. You know, it was a long time getting that deal together, and we're certainly looking to continue our partnership with those guys into the future. This is just the start. I think it's a really good, strong start. We've got you know, really good information from the teams about how they set up their cars and what their cars are capable of. We've got great information from World RX about the tracks, and moving forwards we want to enhance that relationship even more. We've got some incredibly exciting things on the horizon, but I just can't talk about them yet because they are still in that early stages of trying to work out how we're going to go about doing it. But you know,
it's basically post-it notes at the moment.
It is. It's at the post-it note phase, but it's stuff that we've been talking about every time we meet up with the RX guys. They're all so motivated and excited to hear about what we can do with our technology and what they can give us with their technology, and it's really just a case of starting to bring those streams together and start to join the dots. And I think, you know, we're both highly motivated franchises, and we want to work together to make each other stronger. And I think it's one of the best things about working with those guys is that they get what we do and we get what they do, and it's just a case of joining together to kind of like yeah, one of those cartoons that I probably shouldn't mention where stuff joins together and makes itself stronger.
I don't know where you were going with
No,
that.
no, I've lost the plot. It's because I can't see myself. That's why.
Hello to all the guys from World RX as well. We know you're watching. Okay, right. On to the next question. Okay, another rallycross question. Do you think rallycross is the most spectacular motorsport? And that's from Hugo Herbert 34.
I think it's definitely the most intense, and I think, you know, every race weekend something different happens that, you know, you're not expecting. It's so, I guess by its very nature, it's highly unpredictable. There's a lot that can go on within the heats. Drivers can take damage that can really offset their performance throughout the weekend. It's so quick fire as well that, you know, blink and you'll miss it. Like, I was planning to watch the second semi-final, and then I got sidetracked at home, came back, and like apparently the most epic semi-final had happened.
Yeah, so there was
it.
There was a crash into the back of Petter,
Yep.
which pretty much took him out. Then there was what can only be described as a spectacular roll that normally you only see online in a video game. And then when they got round to the final, it's like they were patching up one car with parts from another one that had a wheel fall off. It was pretty cool.
I think that's one of the coolest things that's come about from World RX being televised live streamed. They're running to a schedule now, and where in the past they might have delayed that final to make sure that everybody could get patched up and ready to go. Now they're running to a schedule, and that means that those guys really have to think fast and get those cars patched up as best as possible to get out into the final. But yeah, I do think it's a spectacular form of motorsport, and it's why I'm so glad that we've got the official licensing so that we can represent it properly in game.
Just running through questions, trying to find some. I've already answered that one. Sorry, I should have. We had some problems with everything that's going wrong today. Every printer in the building wasn't working just before, so I never had a chance to read all these through and highlight the ones I wanted to ask. What is the biggest difference when suddenly driving against other people, and what kind of changes should you make to your driving? And that's from RazQ on Twitter.
So definitely expect the unexpected. Humans are a lot less predictable than AI, regardless of whatever systems we can put in place to make our AI have character, be unpredictable, make mistakes. You're never going to see as many differences as you will when you're racing against other human beings. So yeah, I mean, you'll see it in your first online race how varied and different people's joker lap tactics are, and you really have to think fast about when you're going to joker, when you're going to go for an overtake, when it's time to push, when it's time to back off. All of those things come into play. That coupled with the fact that there's the added stress of racing against other players, and you know, you never know when that guy behind you is pushing really hard and is going to catch you up. So yeah, there's a lot more variation involved. So just prepare for the unexpected and try and keep as calm as possible, but you know, controlled aggression, I would say.
I just noticed Robson's racing on my account, which means I'm racking up the wins today.
Yeah.
Although this one's pretty close.
Yeah, so it's part of the reason we've done the two heats thing, so that, you know, two drivers who are doing well will often get faced off against one another, so that they're racing head to head. But if you've had a bad first run, you'll be in the second heat. But you've got an opportunity to win that heat, which will give you good points, and then you might get promoted into the next race, so that you're racing with the quick guys again, and it just keeps things churning over quite nicely, so that people are are constantly getting closer and closer. So over the course of like a 3-event race, you'll probably get some guys up in the 50s. Some guys who've been really struggling will be down, you know, in the 25-point region. But getting a fastest lap will earn you points. Getting the fastest overall race time across the 2 heats will get you some bonus points as well. So it's all kind of designed in a way that keeps things interesting. And from a reward point of view, clean racing gets you some extra bonus cash, and also just making sure that you're not quitting and you're staying there till the very end will get you some extra reward. So that, you know, what we want is for people to get into these sessions and enjoy them for the long term, and not feel like, oh, I lost that race, so therefore I'm going to quit. It's like, no, these are heats. You're just constantly racing against each other, and if you have a bad run in the first race, doesn't mean you're going to have a bad run in the second race. So just keep sort of plugging away at it.
So, I mean, hopefully, I know there's certainly been a lot of people waiting for the PvP update to come out, and it's a lot of people have been saying that they're planning on buying it. Sort of buying it once the update comes out. Obviously, we've got all of these new people that will be joining the game and wanting to race online,
Yep.
and then against all of these people that might have been with us since the very start of early access. Those guys are going to have tons of cash in the bank and almost sort of ready to go. Can the new people that are coming into the game, can they play rallycross with those people? Like, don't they have to save up like 400,000 to buy a car, or can they just jump straight in and still compete?
So if you're hugely impatient and you just want to get straight into the action right away, then you can get a loan car, and you can choose any car from the roster and select it as a loan vehicle, and then we'll give you that car to race with. You won't have to pay for repairs, but you obviously get charged for the loan of the vehicle. But it will allow you to incrementally earn rewards and race in these online sessions. However, you won't be upgrading the car as you go, so the sooner you can get into your own car and pay for it, the better, because then you'll be earning upgrades and the car will be getting quicker off the back of it. But if you're just itching to get out there and get into races, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. You just need to pay for the loan car, which is 1,500 credits, and you'll earn more than that, provided you're not quitting out the race.
So, out of all of the cars that we've got in the game, obviously we added 3 new ones to the roster today. Which is your favourite of all the rallycross cars?
So I think my favourite to drive is probably the 208. I think it's just got a really nice balance to it, and it's very predictable, and I think that comes from the fact that it doesn't have the centre diff, so it's a lot closer to some of the modern WRC cars in terms of how it's set up. If you want a challenge, jump into the DS3. We've worked really hard to make the car as close to PETA's setup as possible, and so the car really it requires a great deal of skill to drive it, but I think when you've got it fully upgraded, it's definitely as competitive as all the other cars out there, as it should be, with it being the championship winning car. But there's definitely a skill required to get the best out of it. What we didn't want to do was just make the best car in the game the easiest car to drive, to make it a win-win situation. But they've all got their nice little subtle nuances. Like even the Mini Countryman, which everyone knows is underpowered because it comes from the 1.6 litre WRC engine that the ProDrive Mini used to have. It's lighter, it's more nimble, and it allows you to duck inside people, get around corners a little bit tighter, and so you're making up your time in the corners and then losing it down the straights. And as was proved in real life, Guy Wilkes was able to really punch above his weight in that car. So I think it's one of those things where right now we haven't seen a car that's come out as being definitely the fastest. So it's really a case of finding the car that you like and then starting to tweak the setup to dial it in even more to what you want from the car. So yeah, I think that there's a nice balance there, but it's really that, certainly for online races, it's finding that that balance between something that's easy to drive and nice and predictable, but not necessarily the quick car out there, or something that's quite lively and wild that might lead to mistakes which could cost you dearly in an online race, but ultimately has the potential to be quicker. So it depends what sort of driver you are and what sort of challenge you want.
Cool. So I mean, you touched on it a little bit when we were talking about the DS3, saying it was closer to Petter's setup. I know when we were over in Holgis for the Rallycross event there, Petter sat down and you spent quite a lot of time actually talking to him about his car. It was very different then. Not that anybody that is playing the game now would necessarily know the difference, but what kind of feedback did Petter have, and how did we use it to then get the car that's now in the game?
So originally, when we set about setting up the DS3, we tried to go for some middle ground between Liam's setup and Petter's setup, but what it actually created was something that was kind of neither here nor there. It was in the middle, and it wasn't a recognisable DS3. And just to explain on that, the way that we do our cars is based on the car model, not based on the team livery that is then driven. Now that's something that we may adjust in the future, allowing us to create more team-based character into the cars.
So it's like Liam's livery would be like Liam's car. And
yeah.
Like
in fact, it would be considered a different car choice, I guess, if you're looking at it in terms of how we would structure the hierarchy of the game. But for this game, we've had to choose a particular style of handling for a car model. And I think it's fair to say that the more recognisable car is Petter's, and it's certainly the more dynamic car. So there's a lot of movement in the suspension, but actually when you analyse what he's doing, it's quite a grip driving technique, although it always looks loose because of the amount of movement that the suspension has. It's quite grip driving in the way that he controls it. And so when Petter sat down and played the car that we had in Holgis, it was quite understeery, but that was down to the tyre, and that was an improvement that we made to all of the cars. But there were some characteristics that he really didn't like about it. So like hard under the brakes, the back end would just step out. And he was like, there's no way that my car would ever do that. There was a couple of extra bits that we did with suspension and diff settings that he preferred when he tried it. But ultimately, giving the car to our simulation guys and saying, okay, this is the feedback that Petter gave, but they knew instantly that he wasn't going to be happy with the car because it wasn't set up to be his car. When we took that decision to set it up more as his car, then it all started to fall into place. And I think, well, hopefully he'll get to play it. Hopefully he got to play it when he was in hell. But you know, I'm really positive that his feedback will be much improved compared to what it was in Holgis, because you know, we've really gone about setting up the car to be as close to his car as possible.
Cool. Question that's come in on Twitter while we've been live streaming. Firstly, hello to anybody that's joining us on the live stream. We're ever so sorry that you can't see us. The webcam broke about 10 minutes into the live stream, and I can't get to it to fix it. But a question that come in on Twitter from RedSpark102 wants to know, will you keep in touch with fans like this even after the early access? That's probably more of a question for me, actually, isn't it?
I guess.
I'm the one that does all the talking.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, doing live streams and stuff, perhaps not so much, because you know, we're doing live streams to essentially talk about the new content that we're adding in, and if the amount of content is slowing down, then there won't be the need to do the live streams as much. But you know, I joined Twitter in, I think, July 2010. And I've been talking to people who've been asking me questions about DiRT since then, and that was obviously back in the days of DiRT 3. And so, you know, I communicate with fans when I've got stuff that I can talk about all the time. And you know, definitely the big change with DiRT Rally has been the fact that we are listening a lot more. But listening is one thing, but being able to react and actually make changes based on what people are saying is definitely the biggest change. You know, I've been listening to people since DiRT 3, but there wasn't a whole lot I could do to change stuff, because by the time I started talking to people for DiRT 3, the game was already kind of in the box and ready to go. And so when people were telling me they wanted more rally, there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it. We'd put more rally into Dirt 3, but it wasn't enough for some people. But that feedback back then was taken on board when we were putting together the vision for this game. And then now that it's out there and people are able to give us feedback on what we've done, we're able to make those adjustments sooner. And I think it's definitely showing that the game is getting shaped by the community a lot more. So yeah, I'll still be listening. If you've got questions, just ask away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a weird one for me. Like, going into early access, as it did genuinely scare the crap out of me. Because it was just like, okay, we kind of don't know what we're doing here. Like, it was new for us. I think it's safe to say we're an older, more established games company. So as a result, there's a lot of old processes sort of internally, and I don't know. I like to think that we've challenged them and hopefully made a better game. You guys can tell us different on Twitter. But I mean, stepping more away from, I suppose, this particular update, what kind of changes have we had to make to how we actually develop a game to be able to adapt to early access?
I think definitely the fact that we're releasing new content every month, sometimes twice a month like this month. So, you know, there's always a build that's ready to be the next public release. And, you know, we used to do that to a certain extent with our box products, but you would make a demo. So it was always a little slice of what the bigger game was going to be. And that demo would be for selected members of the press, so you could really control what was going to be in there, you could really control what was being said about it. So we were always making new builds, but they weren't necessarily getting the exposure that the new builds get now. So there's definitely been a lot more kind of understanding of the sense of always being ready to release. So, you know, literally tomorrow, we will have a candidate version of the next update going into test with all of the content that update should have, and that's what we'll start getting ready for version 8. But something might come out from this update. It's looking fairly robust on screen here now, but
that was something else that also terrified me about the webcam breaking. I'm okay with. Like, I was terrified that the game would like start wigging out, even though it's been fine while we've been testing it.
Well, exactly, and you know, but there might be something when it goes out into the big wide world that causes it to need a patch. So we'll be able to react to that by putting a branch out there. You know, fingers crossed that isn't the case, but it's just that fluidity, that ability to react to the situation, to be able to, you know, change what we were doing. You know, when we put the game out there and everybody said they didn't like the force feedback, you know, we had to stop what we were doing and fundamentally think about what it was that we could do to improve the situation. And, you know, with the help of guys like Better Lines, we were able to get to the bottom of what the problem was, quickly analyse what it was that we needed to do, then start testing that in game, and then create the whole user interface around it so that players were able to tweak those settings that we'd given them. You know, that's something that really in the past patches were just about fixing bugs. They weren't about adding fantastic new features into the game, and that's something that early access has given us the opportunity to do. And you know, it wouldn't surprise me if going forwards bigger games start following this model a little bit more. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head right now, but I think it's fair to say that there'll be some early access console games going out there in the near future.
Cool. Sorry, I was going back through the questions trying to find another one to ask, and I just realised there are a lot of people that asked that adjustable cockpit cam question earlier. Right, okay, we'll skip past those ones now and let's see what the guys over on Steam had to say. Okay, so this question is from YOLO Swaggins on Steam. What an awesome name. When the HAL circuit update adds 3 more cars to the RX, how much more can we expect to see from the FIA RX in game? Will there be any more circuits or any more cars in Dirt Rally?
Right now, not going to confirm anything, but we are looking at some potential options moving forwards. We've got our level design and art teams going out and researching some new locations. So, you know, it's all a case of looking at what we need to do, but you know, World RX is definitely part of our future plans, and so yeah, I mean, never say never, right? There's always a chance.
So there's a question from Job3K. I wonder if that's the same
Sounds
job
like
that sent us a Twitter question earlier, but this one's come through on Steam. Which component of the game are you most proud of so far?
Although,
Joker next lap.
yeah, although it didn't have
Get a penalty.
a huge amount to do with me, I think definitely the simulation improvements are something that I'm really glad we did, and you know, Steve, Nick, Paul and Mike have all been integral to making sure that the changes were the right thing to do, that they were tested, that they were prototyped, that they were, you know, validated internally, and then, you know, now that it's gone out into the wild, people have agreed that it was a good direction to go in. But you know, we had a great, robust physics engine that we were making our games with before, but the guys that wrote it had moved on to new areas, and really Steve was pivotal in actually going in under the hood, finding out what needed to be changed and what could be changed, and then going about changing that in a much more structured and coherent way than we'd ever considered doing it before. And then he was able to bounce his new ideas off the simulation guys. And all of that, coupled with the fact that we had a rally driver in the studio for over a year, giving those guys direct feedback on what they were doing, you know, it's kind of made this perfect storm. And you know, you have to build on strong, solid foundations. And I think I'm probably most pleased about in terms of revolutionising the direction that we've gone in. I think personally, I like the fact that the co-driver calls are being called out as being the most detailed that they've ever been in a rally game. Again, that was something that we really wanted to nail and get right, and that's come from doing it in real life. So yeah, really happy with just the overall kind of experience, but definitely the handling and I think the calls are the two big call-out features.
Cool. Next question from Hydro Blowback on Steam. Wants to know, in a rallycross race, out of all the devs, who would win?
Not me. Probably Robson, I think.
He comes second in the last race.
Yeah. He's probably just trying to put on a show though, to make sure that the community can see the other drivers and see the other cars.
Although you say that, it has been. It's been just, it looked like a one-car race for most of this live stream.
Yeah.
Because he's just mugging everybody else off.
I mean, we've got Joachim in our audio team, who's like a massive sim racer and who comes in and does a lot of the sort of validation of any new systems that the simulation guys are doing. He's been really integral with helping us with the force feedback improvements. The clutch kick that we've included in this new update.
Yes. So that's a big thing. So tell us. See, to me, I wrote that patch note, and I'll be straight. I honestly didn't quite know what it meant, because I don't think I personally aren't at the same level as a lot of the people that have been asking it.
Yeah.
So what does that do?
Well, in a nutshell, if you wanted to use the clutch previously, you had to set manual with clutch. So your only way of being able to use the clutch kick technique was to drive manual with clutch, but not everybody wants to drive manual with clutch all the time. So what we've done is we've included the option to allow you to have the clutch as an active input, even if you're not using it for every gear shift. So you can dip the clutch and just essentially spin up the rear wheels in a rear wheel drive car. And it's a useful driving technique when you're driving around a hairpin. You've maybe gone round, but the car hasn't stepped out quite enough. You can give a quick clutch kick. That'll light up the rear wheels and allow you to kind of make that hairpin a little bit more aggressively than you would have done before. So it's kind of freeing up an option and allowing players to use those techniques that drivers use in real life. It was actually something that Kevin Abrin called out when he came into the studio, and he was trying the Lancia 037, and one of the things he really wanted to be able to do was to use the clutch to just upset the rear end a little bit. and light up those rear wheels. So yeah, glad we've got that one in.
So he doesn't always really come second in that one. They lost by 2 points.
Shaking his head, disappointed.
Right, I think we've got time for one more event before we've got to get off. Need to go check on the internet and make sure everything's not burning. So what's next for you now then, sort of for the rest of this week? What kind of things will you be doing as a chief game designer? So
something that I've hinted at in one of the Dirt Road books was this idea of brushing up on my rally theory. So I'm still in the process of doing that, but probably the largest body of work for me this week is starting to put pen to paper on some guides on how to drive a rally car.
So this is for like a tutorial section?
Yeah, so it is, but it isn't. I don't want to call them tutorials because that implies interactivity. This is more of a guide. This is more of a book on how to be a rally driver, that you can read as little or as much as you want to, and take that knowledge and apply it out on stage. I don't want people to feel like they have to practice the same corner 500 times. This is more about an understanding of what you need to do to get better and more consistent when you're out on stage. And you know, it's applicable to real life as well. So, you know, the techniques that you employ in rally driving are helpful throughout. And yeah, so it's really just a case of getting that stuff together, and then working out what format we're going to deliver it in.
So Robson's got in a mess on the first corner already. Oh, we might actually have a race to watch this time with him at the back of everyone. So I think one of the things that really, I suppose, I think is sort of the coolest thing about this update is the fact that it's the first time that people can actually play against each other in the rallycross mode. It's a question that we've had come in by lots of different people, so I can't send you all of a t-shirt because I don't get that many. But there's people asking about the possibility of us being able to add multiplayer to other areas of the game, perhaps like rally or maybe even hill climb.
So again, always a possibility. It's something that we are investigating. I'm hoping that we can take the stuff that we're learning from this and any feedback that we're getting from it, and we can apply that to rally. But I don't want to give any promises just yet because, you know, there's a lot of people now who will have this update who will be finding stuff that perhaps we haven't found in-house. But yeah, I don't think we're going to get the staggered starts kind of rally that people might remember from Dirt 3. But you know, the opportunity to race against one another in the same session and see your times coming through on the split times. I'm not talking about ghosts flicking around, and I think it's more just a case of being able to chat with your friends and race online together in the heat of the moment rather than doing it asynchronously is something that we would like to do. It's now just a case of whether we can fit it in with all the other stuff that we want to improve.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's probably one of the other things to, I suppose, the differences between Dirt 3 and Dirt Rally. With Dirt 3, I mean, it was awesome to do that sort of stuff, but it's almost like it kind of fitted with what it was because it was quite video gamey in places, and that was very much like a video gaming mode. It was like somebody sets off and then 10 seconds later you go off. In the real world, you don't really sort of compete in a rally like that, do you?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of rallies is minute intervals. When it gets really dusty, they do 2-3 minute intervals to let the dust clear. The rally that John and I did in Somerset in April, we had one stage that was 30-second intervals because it was a second running of the stage and they kept the field kind of rolling through. So you'd all go through at minute intervals, and then once the majority of the field had gone through, they'd then start feeding the next load of drivers in at 30 seconds. But that was like a really short 1 minute long stage, so they could do that because they knew that the stage could be cleared quite quickly by the drivers. But when you get into a big long stage, if something happens, then you don't want to block the stage for 60 competitors, so they do space them out. And certainly with with Dirt Rally, I think it would make sense to have the staggered starts, but is that going to be fun at minute intervals, waiting, you know, potentially 8 minutes before you can even take the start of the stage? I don't know, some guys might really want to do that, but it seems a bit too much to ask for the majority of players. So we'll look at doing it from a simultaneous start kind of perspective and see where that gets us.
Another question that came in quite a lot from a couple of different people in different places. It was regards to sort of how we've been using feedback sort of so far, not necessarily to do with the bugs, but with regards to I suppose the suggestion box that we've got running on the Steam forums and on obviously on the Codemasters forums. Something that I did last week was kind of go through them, everything that's already up there, and try to boil down what I feel the most important things people are asking for, and then obviously I'll pass it over to you and to the design team. What kind of happens then with everybody's ideas sort of past that? Like so where does that list go?
Yeah, so we create user stories off the back of pretty much all of the features that have been suggested, and you know we get a pretty good are the most important things and what are just, you know, the odd person coming up with an insane suggestion. Now sometimes those insane suggestions are actually golden, and occasionally they're quite easy to implement, and we can slot them in quite easily.
Like the joystick support we added in this one.
Yeah, but even the little things like being able to repair a puncture on stage, you know, that was actually quite an easy thing for us to do. But you know, the guys that are out there asking for 500 kilometers of road section in between stages, that sort of stuff is quite quickly put on the not this time pile, because you know, ultimately there's Euro Truck Simulator available on all PC platforms, so go out and play that if you want to do 500 miles in between stages and then come back and do your Dirt Rally stage. But I don't know, I think it's a case of taking what we can do and compiling that into a usable list that we can manage. And you know, as with all game development, there is a time limit available and a resource limit available as to what we can do. But I think a lot of the key improvements we've made have been driven by the community's feedback. I know we keep talking about it, but the force feedback thing is just a golden example of where we thought what we'd done was the right thing. And it was only when you guys came out and shouted at us about how it was definitely not the right thing that we took a step back and looked at it and made that huge improvement. And now we can't believe that we ever played the game in the way that we played it before we released. And we wouldn't ever think about doing it that old way ever again. So, you know, it's just that thing of, you know, there's some stuff that we've thought about and we hear it echoed in the community. There's plenty of stuff that we haven't thought about. We hear it being talked about a lot. And so I guess it's part of what we do as game developers. And one of the biggest changes is being able to listen and use that as a guide as to what we are adjusting and improving and introducing as new features into the experience.
Cool. I think that is probably about what we've got time for this live
show. Feels like we've overrun.
We have overrun a little bit, but we're in charge, so it's okay. Thank you very much to everybody who is watching. We're really sorry that the webcam wasn't on and you couldn't see mine and Paul's gorgeous faces, but it broke about 20 minutes into the
next time we'll do it so that the webcam's twice as close to make up for it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. We really want to see your guys' videos, your screenshots. If you're looking for a group of people to play Dirt Rally with, swing by the Steam forums or the Codemasters forums. There's loads of guys on there that'll be out looking for racing. We'll even be joining in a couple of them later on this evening and over the rest of the week. You'll know when it's one of us because I believe we have a little shield icon in most of the lobbies.
So yeah, that's some of the community members have that as well. But yeah, generally if you see a shield, that's somebody that's either one of us or someone very close to one of us. So yeah.
Cool. Yes, as ever, thank you very much. Swing by dirtgame.com for sort of all of the information on the game, everything that's gone into this update, everything that's gone into the old updates as well. There's links there to Steam and our YouTube videos and blog posts. It's all on there. Obviously follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. We're /DiRTGame on the whole of the internet. So yeah, hopefully we've welcomed in a load of new players today to join us for PvP. And we'll be back for Finland update next month.
Yep.